when you're in stagflation, which is what we're in right now, you have increased price level and also decreased productivity, which results in unemployment. So you have to choose when you're solving this problem. This graph's getting kind of busy. I'm going to draw bigger over here.
You should show the shirt to me, you know, your Superman shirt. Superman.
Didn't think of that. So you've now moved, because of this supply shock. Now, one thing to just kind of remember when you're doing these problems, you're in part A, you're going to have walked through all these steps. And on the test, you can do this all in one graph. I just want to make it bigger so we can all see it. You're going to have walked through all these steps, but once you get to part B, he's assuming you're back to B. So he's assuming you had your supply shock, you moved to this equilibrium, and at this point, Ben Bernanke decided, you know what? We can't just wait around. We need to fix this. We need to get people back to work. What's the exact phrasing of the question?
Suppose the Federal Reserve decided it wanted to offset any adverse effects on output due to a supply shock. What actions could it take? What would happen to the price level if the Fed used monetary policy to fight unemployment in this situation?
Right. So generally in stagflation, you have two options. If you don't want to wait for the self-correcting mechanism. If you decide, you know what, we can't wait, something needs to be done, you have two options within the aggregate supply model. You can move to this equilibrium by increasing aggregate demand, or you can move to this equilibrium by decreasing aggregate demand. So those are your two options. And basically what this says is the Fed can take action to bring employment back at the expense of price level, because now your price level is going up even more, or at the expense of unemployment, you can keep price level low. Wow, I did that. This should go through this point. So can someone explain to me what would the Fed do? Let's say the Fed wanted to, as this problem says, decrease unemployment. What tools does the Fed have to do that?
Can it increase the money supply?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Or decrease interest rate?
Same thing. So in this problem, it's trying to get rid of unemployment. So it's going to increase money supply and decrease interest rates. And a decrease in interest rates will raise aggregate demand. So the idea is you try to raise it back to so that you're back on your full employment. In the opposite direction, I was just like, are you raising your hand? So in the opposite direction, what would the Fed do? Let's say the Fed decided I want to keep price levels the same. What would the Fed do?
Just decrease the money supply?
Exactly. Money supply would shift in the opposite direction, interest rates would shift up, and that would shift aggregate demand down, keeping price level the same.
Okay, so why is it like the money supply that's shifting, not the money demand curve?
The money demand curve shifts in relation to what shifts here. So yes, once you make the shift here, you then, in theory, would have to make the shift again here. But that's multiplier, and that's kind of like the way remember how? Do you remember that one class where he spent like 20 minutes talking about a tangent, about how the ripple effect and the multiplier, how that comes about? I'm getting completely blank stares. Completely blank stares. Basically, what he's saying is, for every change, for every one single change, there's always going to be a change in the other ones. But then, once the other ones change, the original one changes again. That's how the multiplier works. So remember how he talked about, if Tulane were to shut down, at first we'd have the initial, like, all the professors would be gone, all the students would be gone. But then you'd have, Rite Aid would go out of business, and Boo Pizza would go out of business. And so that's like the multiplier. And it's the same thing applies here. So you would move money supply, and that would have a direct effect on this one. Same thing. And that's all he's going to ask for on the test. That's what he's asking for. And then for you to explain it. In reality, you have a shift in this, and that shift in this then results in a shift in money demand also. But that shift in money demand is not as big as the shift in money supply, meaning it doesn't totally cancel it out. Does that make sense?
Okay.
And I go into more detail, but he's not going to ask this on the test. Like, he's not asking for that extra step. What he's asking for is you to say, to decrease unemployment, Ben Bernanke, Super Benny will increase money supply, which will increase aggregate demand, which will bring the economy back to full employment, but it will increase price level. As he would say, for an A, why would the Fed ever favor price level over unemployment?
Because inflation tends to be like self-perpetuating. Like once you start, you can't really stop it.
Exactly. If you were to do this, it has been found. If you were to do this, move it back up, unemployment, just let price levels go up a little bit. It has been found that aggregate supply will continue to rise, and then you'll correct it, and then it'll rise again, and then you'll correct it. And you run into a vicious cycle where at a certain point you get to the point in the government where someone says, you know what, we can't do this anymore. We have to bring inflation back to a reasonable level. And the drop from here to here is kind of negative. Like you get a little bit of unemployment. The drop from here, or it'll actually be here, because you're then moving back over, all the way down to here, is a very big deal. That's like Great Recession kind of stuff. That type of massive structural shift.
So if you ask like a question like what should we do, we should always worry about inflation over unemployment.
Yes.
So basically raising the interest rate.
Yes. Because short-term pain for long-term not pain.
Wait, I thought that he said it was the opposite. Didn't he say that you always increase price levels?
Depends on who you are. If you are an elected official, then you always want to worry about employment and not worry about price level. Because all you want is for your next election in 4 years, you want people to be happy. People are more happy when they're employed than they don't really care about inflation. You don't care about how much your dollar is changing per minute if you have a job. Like as long as you have a job.
You're in that class now. That's what you just said, right?
Yes.
That you're in.
Yeah. So as an elected official, which is what I want to be, you always worry about unemployment. But as an economist, you know that in the long run, you really should worry more about price level because unemployment will fix itself much more easily than inflation.
But for this question, it's decrease. What was the final answer?
For this one, it's asking you, it tells you, the Fed wants to worry about unemployment.
Okay.
So you're going to raise money supply, lower interest rates, raise aggregate demand.
So it's basically you deciding where to move the aggregate demand.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So it's,
Supply shocks and self-correcting mechanism always move the aggregate supply curve, and the Fed always moves the aggregate demand curve.
Can you say that again?
Supply shocks or the self-correcting mechanism always deal with the short-run aggregate supply. The Fed, in its corrective methods, always deals with the aggregate demand. Yeah, always.
So only supply shocks.
Supply shocks and self-correcting mechanisms.
have you seen the test?
I'm not quite a TA. I'm like half a step behind the TA. So I don't get to see the tests or grade them. That'd be fun. I feel like grading it is fun. for like 3 tests and then you get boring.
Well,
In your
but-
experience, does he like just give like random questions that have like nothing to do?
What do you mean? Like in multiple choice or?
Like multiple choice and like the short answer. Like will there be likely something that you just haven't gone over?
No, there will not be anything.
Tricks or sucker bets?
The biggest trick he'll do that I can think of in this unit is he might give you one of the problems we did at first, and he might give you net exports, and then he might say in the problem, this is a closed economy. If he says it's a closed economy, look out, because that means that that exports don't matter. So he might give you net. I don't think he's going to do that, but he might. In my experience, there haven't been any like real tricks. It's just like, you know what? He might throw something that's slightly more complicated than what we've gone over. So like the oil shock thing, that was a little more complicated than what we did in class. Because you had to actually think, well, an increase in oil prices, how would that affect it? He didn't just lay out, oh, there's a supply shock.
So what could affect, like oil, and what else could cause a supply shock?
The only thing I can think of is oil, or he could just generally say inputs have gone up.
Numbers, okay. And can you repeat he's going to ask probably multiple choice about liquidity of money, right?
Yes,
So,
I predict that there's going to be a multiple choice question to do with the liquidity theory of money, which is just interest rate is equal to opportunity cost. And the reason I think that he's going to do that is because he didn't do that. He didn't, my year or my semester, he did not teach that.
So that's why.
So I think that he's going to ask questions.
So
You
that
can go over,
lower-
like, you can go over that liquidity theory of money. Like just
No problem. It's a brief thing. Interest rate is equal to opportunity cost of holding money. So the price of me keeping $20 in my wallet is the interest rate, because I could take that $20 and put it in my bank account. So, and the way I think of it is money you hold, you're assumed you're going to spend it, because that's why you have it. You have it suspended. I can do two things with my dollar bills. I can either go and buy this car, or I can save the money. And let's pretend this car would, for every dollar I spend on a new car, it'll bring me 8 cents more than $1, so $1.08 worth of pleasure. You've heard this like 3 times, haven't you? Yeah. So it'll bring me $1.08 worth of pleasure for every dollar I spend on a new car. So I have a choice. Do I want to buy the new car, or do I want to save my money? If interest rates are 10%, when I save my money, I'm going to get 10 cents on the dollar. So I'm going to save my money, because me getting 10 cents on the dollar is more than the amount of pleasure I'm getting out of this car, correct? But let's say interest rates are 5%. In that case, I'm going to buy the car because I'm getting 5 cents on the dollar if I save my money, but I'm getting 8 cents on the dollar worth of pleasure from the car.
Okay, so
So that's the liquidity theory of money. The cost of holding the money is the interest rate.
how might he ask that like in a multiple choice?
I have no idea. He might literally just write, what is the liquidity theory of money? That's a distinct possibility. But he also might say, he also might not mention the name of the theory. He might say, interest rate is equivalent to, and then one of the options is going to be opportunity cost of holding money.
So the lower the lower the interest rate, the more money you're going to hold.
Correct. The lower the interest rate, the lower the opportunity cost of holding money, the more money you're going to hold, the more money you're going to
And that's
spend.
the animal spirits he called.
I missed the day that he talks about animal spirits. I'm kind of
For a day.
Hmm?
It was cash out for a day.
He was? That's exciting.
Well, I mean, that's what she says, right? Wasn't she the song about like animal spirits?
I don't know. Talking about that's beyond my. I just do economics. I'm just kidding. But yes, that's the end.
We just went over problem 2.
Okay, really quick.
Yeah, we got 10 minutes.
Since we only have time to start on the problem, on 1C, I keep getting delta G to be 200.
Wasn't delta G 200? No,
was 100.
it was 100.
Like,
Just the multipliers too.
right, but like that's how we did it on the PowerPoint, but like we did algebraically in here, and if you do it algebraically, it's 200.
Didn't we do it algebraically on the board? Didn't we get 100? Didn't we get 100?
Yeah, you got 100, but
It's like 200 equals like 2 delta G. and then
Is anyone else having this problem? Did anyone else do it algebraically or no?
I didn't have to know.
Even algebraically.
Yeah.
like the math's not right.
Let me-
Because you got 5900 plus G equals 7000, but it should be 5800 plus G equals 7000. So, I mean, I was trying to call you out, I just don't understand, because that's the way I was going to do it on the test. It's
Right.
Algebraically.
Let me look at your. Once the session leaves, I'll look at your paper specifically. Just
Okay.
look at individual
Also,
concerns.
do you think he's gonna ask anything about like liabilities and assets for bank accounts? Because like there was like nothing on that on the sample midterm, but there's like a section about
If he asks
reserve
that,
ratios and other stuff like that.
Multiple choice.
if he asks that, it's going to be a one multiple.